Hey y'all, welcome to this week's episode of Dope Black Vet. This week we're going to venture again to talk about more what it is that your pets need. Last week we talked about puppies, this week we're going to talk more about kittens. But before we jump into that real quick, I want to backtrack to the puppy vaccinations that we talked about, just to give you kind of some names of those vaccinations. Those would include your DHPP, which is your distemper and parvovirus vaccine, which is highly important. Sometimes to that vaccination, we also add a leptospirosis vaccination, which can be an optional vaccine sometimes depending on what your pets like to do. If you live around a lot of water sources or your pet tends to lick in water sources and ditches and things like that, where they can easily pick up leptospirosis, this would be a very important vaccine to get for your pet. Leptospirosis is a condition that can be zoonotic to people, so we want to make sure that your pets that need those vaccinations are vaccinated accordingly. So another vaccination would be the oral bordetella vaccination. If you're going to board your pets a lot, or if you like to visit dog parks and have your dog around other dogs, then I would highly recommend this vaccination. It's part of our core vaccines, just like your DHPP. And the last but not least is your rabies vaccination, which is super important because rabies is zoonotic to people, so we have to vaccinate for that. With that being said, we often get lots of complaints in my clinic about having to pay for added fees when it comes to a rabies vaccination. Depending on what area you live in, where you stay, and whether or not your pet is spayed or neutered can determine whether or not you have to pay additional fees to have your pet registered properly in the areas where you live with animal control. So some people don't realize that when they want to pay $13 for a vaccine and then they get there and the vaccine is really more like $35, these fees are added because it's required legally by animal control. So sorry, not our fault. We didn't do it on purpose. If we could fix it, we would, but that money goes to animal services. So we apologize again. Now, before we jump into kittens, I want to give this week's T-shirt shout out to all of the veterinary professionals. We are freaking essential people. If you did not know, your veterinary personnel, your veterinarians are considered essential personnel. We work in the public health industries. We also work in meat facilities where animals are slaughtered humanely for meat sources. We also work curbside. So for those who are struggling and working it out curbside, we appreciate you. We appreciate all veterinary personnel that are now working because they are freaking essential employees. So we thank you. With that being said, now let's jump into our kittens. So kittens pretty much need the same thing that our puppies need. Kittens need vaccinations. They need deworming. They need flea, tick, and heartworm prevention just like puppies. So the vaccinations that we commonly give our young kitten friends tend to be what we call the FVRCP. So the P in that is panleukopenia, which is similar to parvovirus in dogs. So it kind of works the same. So this is a vaccination that's really, really important because panleukopenia can be fatal to kittens. So make sure we get that vaccination in your kitten. It's going to require several boosters before we are not as susceptible to it anymore. Remember, we like to vaccinate up to about 16 weeks of age to make sure that kittens can handle what they're exposed to. Another vaccination would be the FELV, which is our leukemia vaccination, as well as the FIV, which is like the kitten version of AIDS, HIV type vaccination. So we typically will combo test or do a test for these two diseases before we administer these vaccinations just to find out a pet's status. So sometimes kittens get these from being nice to each other. So FELV we call our friendly kitty disease because cats that carry it can give it to other cats through grooming each other. So cats love to lick on each other. So keep that in mind that whenever you get a new kitten or you find a stray kitten, don't expose it to your cat at home because it may have something that your cat can get. So keep that in mind. Also, cats and kittens need rabies vaccinations because these again are important. It is legally required because rabies are zoonotic to people and can cause fatal illness in us just like it does in them. So vaccinate. Kittens do need these vaccines. We also deworm them for common intestinal parasites like hookworms and roundworms. And they can also get heartworms from mosquitoes. So in later episodes, I want to talk a lot about heartworms and heartworm prevention because a lot of people don't know about it, and heartworms can be fatal to any of your pets. And sometimes people have minor questions or minor things that they don't understand about heartworms. So we look forward to talking more about that in the future. However, if you have any questions, concerns, comments about your kittens and your puppies, feel free to drop that in the comments. Once again, feed your kittens a healthy diet. Milk is not good for kittens. It causes diarrhea. Who would have thought that? On every Disney show you see, they give kittens milk. Don't give your kittens milk. See you next week for another episode of Dope Black Vet. Bye.